So, welcome to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Tonight, we're going to be covering solar arc directions. Now, I'm now 64 years old and I've only just recently coined them. I've been doing astrology for years, and it was when I interviewed Christina a few months ago that she mentioned them, and I thought, oh, I'll investigate those a bit more. So I've been doing a lot of investigating, and I thought I won't do the webinar until I've got a clearer understanding of how they work. So I'm going to kick off and share my screen, and I'm going to do a little PowerPoint. And there we go. So share my screen, and I'll just minimize, and we'll go to here. Let's go back to the beginning. Right. So welcome to Skype Astro Meetups with Mary. Solar arc directions. It's a quick way to predict without any software or apps. Before I start, I just need to let you know that there is going to be some maths involved in this webinar. A birth chart's constructed using astronomical calculations. A chart has 360 degrees in it, 30 degrees for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. So 12 times 30 is 360. I've sent you all your birth chart using an astro.com method that makes it easier to see the degrees that are in your chart. So in this webinar, you'll learn how to predict just using your chart. You won't need any software, but you might need a calculator. Now, there are two places you can see your degrees. One is next to the planet image. So that circle there, which I've completely obliterated by my red line there, that's the symbol for the sun in the sign of Virgo. And right next to it, you'll see there the number, hopefully, because it's a bit small, 8, the symbol for Virgo, and then 47. So that is sun in Virgo, 8 degrees and 47 minutes. The second place to see them is in the table bottom left. So you've got sun, Virgo, 8 degrees, 46 minutes and 38 seconds. The numbers in the chart are rounded up. The ones in the table are the super accurate ones. For this webinar, all we need are the rounded figures. The degree of the planet, we don't need the minutes or seconds. So this is a super short history of solar arc directions. Marion D. March and Joan McEvers in their The Only Way to Learn About Tomorrow say this method stems from the Radix system, which was an introduction in 1918 by Seth Ariel and expanded by Vivian Robson in 1930. So we can safely assume that this method is pretty new as far as astrology goes, because astrology is 2,000 years old. Seth Ariel, whose real name was Walter, says, the method I've advocated for many years and have consistently used in practice is as follows. For each year of life, add 1 day to that of birth and set the figure for the hour and place of birth. In Vivian's book, he says, the only way to maintain the radical relation of the planets is to direct them all at an equal rate and ignore their own orbital motion after birth. I'll explain more about that in a minute. So, okay, Mary, what does all of this mean? In astrology, we use various different methods for prediction. Solar and lunar returns. We make a chart for the date, the time the sun and moon will be exactly the same degree, place as when you were born. Transits are the actual planetary placements for any date and how they interact with your chart. And progressions, we progress/move a chart's planets forwards through the signs using 1 day for every year of life. In solar arc directions, we're using a different calculation. 1 degree for every year of life. In the next slide, you'll see how the sun moves every day through the signs of the zodiac, hence the term solar, because it relates to the movement of the sun. So the sun moves approximately 1 degree every day. So this is this year now, January 2025. On the 1st of January, the sun, that's the symbol for the sun there, that's the sign for Capricorn, was 10 degrees, 48 minutes, 49. But just look at the numbers, forget about the minutes and seconds. On the 2nd of January, it was 11. On the 3rd of January, it was 12, and so on until we get to the 19th, and it's going to be 29 degrees. So it's just 1 degree for every day. The sun will shift because eventually it's going to get to 30 and then change sign. So the astrologers, Sapphire, who just mentioned, and Vivian, who's a Gemini, so he was a Pisces, Sapphire, and Vivian was a Gemini, decided that we could judge the future/past of a person's chart by using the direction that the sun moves, 1 degree every day for each year of life, and move all the other planets forward through the zodiac using that same calculation. So at 20 years old, we could move the sun forwards through the zodiac by 20 degrees, 1 degree for every year of life, and all the other planets and angles in the chart by 20 degrees as well. Then compare those moved planets with where they are natally. Do they form a conjunction? Do they form a square or other aspect? Now, this is completely different from progressions because with a progression, they move them all at the rate that they travel in real life. And in transits, as you know, Pluto takes much longer to go through all the signs of the zodiac than the sun or the moon does. So they're the swiftest. The moon changes sign every 2 days. The sun changes sign every 30 days. With this calculation, those degrees that you're moving for the age for the person, you're going to shift everything else by the same degrees. It'll all make sense in a minute. So the way to work with solar arcs is to find out how many degrees that there are between each planet and use those degrees as brackets possible years of life. Then using that same counting system, we can work out what age the person might be in years when one planet moves towards conjuncts, aspects the other. So remember, we're using 1 degree for every year of life. So have a look at your chart and look at where all the planets are located. Start with the sun and what degree it is. Look at all your other planets and what degrees they are too. Make a note of those numbers because we'll be using them in this session. We'll have questions at the end, so please make a note of them for afterwards. Now I'm going to use the charts of some of my family because I've got written records of what went on. I was going to use some famous people, but when I checked my family's charts, I got quite excited because they demonstrate this method rather beautifully. So our mother Jean was born in 1921. She had 5 live births. There was one child who didn't make it between me and a younger sister. I'm only covering births and deaths, however. There were lots of other things that happened to her in her long life. And I'll show you how to make these charts in a minute. But first, let's eyeball part of her chart. So her sun is 27 degrees Aquarius. Her Uranus is 5 degrees Pisces. Her Mercury is 15 degrees Pisces. Her Mars is 2 degrees Aries. And her Venus is 13 degrees Aries. Okay. Her first child, my brother, was born when she was 35. There are 35 degrees between her sun in Aquarius and her Mars, which is a male planet, in Aries. So we've shifted the sun now, so it's on the outside rim of the circle there. We've moved it by 35 degrees, and at 35 degrees, I mean, I can show you the actual how it looks like in a minute, but there's 35 degrees between 27 Aquarius and 2 degrees of Aries, which is her male planet. Okay, and she was 35 now. She couldn't have had kids when she was 8 years old. And probably not when we get to that 15 degrees. So that's not going to produce children for her. And she had to have an operation to correct something. I'm not going to go into details. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to have kids at all. But by the time she got to 35, it was safe and she could have them. Now, there are lots of different ways you can calculate this in your head. So this is the method that I use, but you'll find your own. So her sun's 27 degrees, which means that there are 3 degrees left of Aquarius. And then add the 30 degrees for the whole of the sign of Pisces. Then add the 2 degrees for Mars in Aries. So 3 plus 30 plus 2 equals 35. So I'll just go back to there. So we've got the 3 degrees there. We've got the whole of Pisces, and we've got the 2 degrees. Yeah. 3 plus 30 plus 2, which was 35. And she was absolutely 35 years old when she finally hit lucky and had my brother. So this is how it looks at astro.com when her chart's been solar arced at the age of 35. So you've got the sun there at 27 degrees. You've got the moon, you've got Mercury, you've got Venus, you've got Mars. This is what we call solar arcs. The natal's written in blue. The solar arc is written in green. You've got 2 degrees and her Mars is 2 degrees. Forget the minutes. Okay, we've got 2 degrees. That's what we're looking for when the numbers match up. And Mars is a male planet because you know all of that because you've learned astrology. La, la, la. So here I've made a solar arc chart for the actual date my brother was born. So not just my mum being 35. This is the date of his birth. And the progressed sun, so we progressed it in green, is now exactly conjunct her natal Mars. And I'll show you how to do this type of chart in a min. Mum carried on having kids until she was 46. So our parents were Catholics and they had planned on having 6 boys. But that didn't quite work out as they had 1 boy and 4 girls. Her last chart was my sister Katie, who was born with Down syndrome. In my mother's chart, there are 46 degrees between her sun at 27 degrees Aquarius and her Venus, which is a male planet, at 13 degrees Aries. So we don't show up in my mother's chart in between those 2 planets there as far as this system goes. But the most impactful births she had, which generally if you've ever had kids you probably agree with me, your first one's pretty impactful, and then in my mother's case the last one was extremely impactful because my sister had Down syndrome, and it's lovely how it's conjunct to her natal Venus. And my mother did love my younger sister an awful lot, and she turned my sister into a bit of a project actually, because Katie did really, really well. So now things get interesting. I wanted to know if Katie's birth showed up in anyone else's chart. Now it does show up in mine, and it's my progressed ascendant conjuncts my natal Pluto. I'm not using that as an example because my birth time isn't totally accurate. I do know what time I was born because my auntie wrote it in her ephemeris, and she wrote the time that she was told, but I don't think this is the exact time I was born. With this system, it works best if you've got exact as far as ascendant goes, because as you know, the ascendant can change quite rapidly. Now, the degrees of the planets won't. So I've used this sister. So in my older sister's chart, it does. This sister was 9 years old when Katie was born. So she's got Moon in Sagittarius and Saturn in Sagittarius. So we've got the Moon at 14 degrees and Saturn at 23 degrees. So 23 minus 14 is 9. There are 9 degrees between her Moon and her Saturn. At age 9, her solar arc progressed Moon is now exactly conjunct her natal Saturn in the 3rd house of siblings. So the 3rd house in astrology is brothers and sisters. The Moon comes along and goes smash into her Saturn. This particular sister felt it was a big responsibility for this other sister, so Katie, to be born. So my older sister, when Katie was born, thought it was a big responsibility for the family. I was quite happy about it myself. I didn't think anything negative of it, but this sister took it quite seriously. She was a lot older than me. I was only 7. This sister was 2 years older than me. She was 9. So different ways of tackling things. So going forwards in time, my dad, died when I was 22. So this is my natal Saturn at 16 degrees Capricorn, and my natal Mars is 8 degrees Aquarius. There are 22 degrees between my Saturn, Dad, and my Mars energy. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes less than a year after he died. But at 22, I was 22. when he died, there's 22 degrees between my Saturn and my Mars. And as I say, my Mars is in my 6th house of health. And so Saturn, progressing by using the solar arc method, conjuncted my natal Mars. And it's a fact, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes the following year, so less than a year. Mum died, age 92. Older sister, who we were talking about just then, was 55 years old. There are 55 degrees between her moon at 14 degrees Sagittarius, so moon represents her mother, and Mercury, 9 degrees Aquarius, in her 4th house of home. So there's the progressed moon being moved forwards by 55 degrees. It's now at exactly the same degree, 9 degrees, to my sister's Mercury in the 4th house. So obviously when mum goes, this represents mum. This is communication. This is 4th house home enrichment. But I talk with her anymore because Mercury is about talking. They were both poets, by the way, but we won't go into that. So we're now going to use astro.com to calculate, and I'm going to do a live demo. So I'm just going to move that down and go to astro.com. Boom. Now this is an example chart that I've already created. So the way you do it, but you can eyeball the chart, okay? That is the simplest, easiest way of doing this, is just to look at how many degrees you've got between one thing and another in your chart. Oh my God, I've got 9 degrees here. What happened when I was 9 years old? I've got 12 degrees between this and what happened? And then use your interpretations for the planets. But I'm just going to show you how to do it on astro.com if you want to make it super accurate. Because as I showed you in that first ephemeris about the sun moving approximately 1 degree every day, this way will make it super accurate for you, that you wouldn't be able to do the maths in your head. Okay, so we've got podcast example person. They were born in 1993, I think it's making over. Yeah, 1993. So we're going to do, let's assume something happened to them when they were 20 years old. So we're going to use the year. Mary, your maths is rubbish. So we're going to go to 1st of January 2020. Oh no, because they're born on the, what date are they born? Hold on 1 minute. They were born on the 1st of September 1993. So I'm going to go to the 1st of September 2013, and they're now 20 years old. We'll just see how that looks. So what you need to do in this box here, so you've got the name of the person, chart type. You in here, so normally it says natal chart wheel. That's how it looks at when you land on the site. If you click in this box here and scroll all the way down, and it goes prognostic methods, keep scrolling, and you want natal and solar arc direction. Now I've sent your charts to you using this chart drawing style Anglo with Zodiac. So you can have Anglo, or you can choose Anglo with Zodiac, because in those charts the numbers are written bigger and they're easier to see. So we're going to do the 1st of September 2013. I've got no idea what's going to happen here, but we'll just have a look. Is there anything that is exactly matches up? So what you're looking at is that the numbers have got to match up to something else. So this person, I don't think anything is matched. Nope. So there's nothing that's exactly the same degree. Okay, so we just, that's an absolutely rubbish example. We'll go back to today's date. And I'm having the 16th, this imaginary person, 16th of January 2025. I'm sure something moved when I looked at this earlier. Natal and solar direction. Venus is now exactly conjunct this person's ascendant. So Venus is, well, it's 6 degrees actually, so we'll probably have to go back by a day or so. But what you're looking at, you've got to do the maths. So 8 and 11, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 3 degrees between this and that. There's 3 degrees between the ascendant, the sun. And every time you do it, you're going to be in your mind working that this planet on the left is going to be moving around to the right. What is the degrees between that? So 12 and 15, there's 3 degrees. So we could say, oh, something could happen to this person when they're 3. You've got no degrees in between these two. They're absolutely conjunct. Forget that. You've got 26 degrees here to Saturn. So 26 and plus 4 plus 9 is 13. Possibly Saturn will be moving forwards and getting exactly to their moon by the age of 13. Did I say? Yeah, 13. So that's how you would calculate it, just eyeballing the chart. But if you know the date of birth of someone or something significant that's happened to yourself and you can't be asked to do the maths on it, then this is the method to do it. On the outside will be the progressed planets, so using the solar arc direction, and down in this box here will be the actual maths view. That bit there will tell you the age the person becomes. So arc is 30 years old, 36 minutes and 41 seconds, and then it'll also solar arc your ascendant and your MC. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully it does, but that's a way to cheat. So you can go to astro.com. It's in this box here, chart type, you want natal and solar arc. Don't do solar arc direction on its own because you won't know what the heck you're looking at. And you can put your dates in the box there. And if you use the Anglo with Zodiac, which you don't have to do, but if you do that, you'll be able to see the numbers more easily. So remember your chart shapes. If you've got a very clustered chart, there's not going to be very many degrees between each planet. So maybe most things happen to you when you're very little. If you've got a splash splay chart, which a big percentage of my family have and I have as well, maybe those degree events won't happen until you're much older. Things to consider. Ruler of the chart. So in my mother's case, she had a Gemini ascendant, so the ruler to her chart is Mercury. The sister whose example I gave is a Libra ascendant, so the ruler to her chart is Venus. Maybe those might be more important planets, but consider them. The degree of the lights, so the lights are the sun and the moon, so how many degrees are they? And the degree distance between the sun and the moon, and the more impactful planets like Saturn. You can also use the ascendant MC, but only if you have an accurate time of birth, so you've got it written on a birth certificate somewhere. And if you're checking your own chart, like later on tonight, you can also use aspects like opposition squares, sextiles and trines. I haven't demoed that because we'll be here all evening, but be wise. Do not use this method to make fancy pronouncements to young people. Okay, you don't know what those progressed planets are going to actually represent for that person. As you know, every planet has a challenging description and a friendly description. So do not scare yourself or other people. You could ask, or you can ask a potential client or others questions like, oh, what happened to you when you were 9 years old? Oh, my sister would have said, oh, my sister Katie was born. As a way of helping the client open up about something. You can use this method to find out how impactful something might have been in your own chart or life. So as I did all of our family to see who was most impacted by the birth of my Down syndrome sister, and of us all, the one that it was most impactful for was the oldest sister. Okay, not brother, who was the oldest completely. So end notes, there are 10 planets in your chart. Not all of them will indicate something. Remember your keywords for planet signs and houses. You can download them free from my website. Just go to marings.com/keywords with a capital K .txt. So I'll just click on that, show you where it takes you to, and it'll take you to this page here. And you've got all the keywords for the signs of the zodiac, the planets themselves, and all the houses. Let me just go back. There we go. And that's the references for where I've got the information from today. And I hope that's helped. So let me just get out of screen sharing. Stop sharing. Okay. Now, did that make any sense?
It did. I have a question.
Go. Wait, let me get your chart. Hold it.
Okay, thank you.
I've got your chart. Okay, go.
Mine being I think it's a stellium chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that considered part of the cluster that you were talking about versus the latter end of it?
Yeah, versus splashes or splays. If you've got a
Okay.
stellium, but I mean, you've still got between your Pluto and your Mercury. I'm gonna have to count on my fingers now. Excuse me. So your Pluto's 12 degrees and your Mercury's 25, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 18. Something could have happened when you were 18, but that's where you need to start investigating your chart and find out what it was that did happen. Pluto's about deep change and transformation. Mercury's how we think. So that even though you've got a stellium, there are degree differences between one planet and another. They could indicate something that might have happened to you in your earlier life, as opposed to what might be happening to you now. But even so, as I say, in my older sister's case, with my mother dying age 92 and that sister being 55, there was still a connection. Yeah. Does that help?
That does help. Thank you.
Yeah. All you're looking at is the amount of degree difference between one planet and another. And in your mind, you're imagining one of those planets moving towards the other one. So what connection would there be between those? Between those two things. Go.
Another question.
Yo.
What if I wanted to go back to a certain point, like when I was 32? I can go backwards. I can do the dates backwards and see kind of if it coincides with my life.
Yeah. See if it shows up. So if you go to AstroTalk, that date box where I put today's date in, put that date of the age that you were. So you might even have to do it for because you're born in October. So you might have to do it either before your birthday or after your birthday. I mean, obviously, officially after your birthday, you're now that age. And then see if there's anything, but it has to match up exactly mathematically or form a square or a sextile. So sextiles and trines are friendly, and oppositions, conjunctions, and squares can be challenging, depending.
Okay.
You'll be spending hours looking at your chart now.
It's okay.
But the idea being behind it, so I think the guy Sephiel that I quoted, he was a Pisces, God help us. He used it a lot with his clients because in the 1900s, nobody had computer programs. And if you're going to do a reading for someone, yes, they could have done transits, what's going to happen to them in the future. But he also wanted to be able to give people information of what to expect or what might already have happened to them. And it's not fail safe. This doesn't work with everybody's charts all of the time. Okay, so I haven't got the copy of the book now, I've moved it. Here it is. So in the Only Way to Learn About Tomorrow, which is the book that I quoted, okay, by Marion March, and look at their photos, aren't they cute? I love the glasses she's wearing, the sunglasses. She looks like some sort of superstar. In there, they're using a famous actor whose name I can't remember. Hold on. They're using the chart of Rock Hudson, whose father left the family home when Rock was 6.5 years old. So they did the calculations. I can't remember which planet it was now. Yes, okay. So Saturn was exactly conjunct his son when he was 6.5 years old. So they could have said to his parents, oh, when you're 6.5, that. But you wouldn't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? That would be completely unethical to do that to somebody. I think it's nicer to look in your own chart just to see, because if that is a number and it's exactly, then you go, oh, that was pretty impactful. Because I wanted to see how impactful my sister's birth was for the other members of the family. And in what way, which planets were affected. Yeah. So in my sister's case, it was Saturn. So she took it really, really seriously. I didn't. I thought it was fun. She didn't. She's a bit older than me. Yeah.
One more question.
Oh.
And I have a friend, she wants me to practice this on her too. So can I also do this solar arc potentially for, let's say, a year out for her?
No, it's not like using transits.
Okay.
Yeah, no, if you want to do this year, then do a transit rhythmogram. And then you'll see what's going to be important. This is more for impactful things. I mean, it could be that in this coming year, when we get to her birthday, so say she's going to be 35 years old, you could do it and see if there's anything that's got 35 degrees between one planet and another. And if there is, and say, I don't know, say it's her Venus and her Jupiter, maybe she's going to fall in love with somebody from another country. Remember all your keywords for all your planets. Yeah.
Okay.
So and the reason that it was used as predictions, nobody had computer programs and stuff, but back then people made predictions that were much, I can't think what the word is now. They wanted to sort of probably scare people a bit more and come across as quite sort of knowledgeable. Exactly. But I thought it was quite interesting how the numbers worked out when I was going to use some famous people, and because a lot of times on Wikipedia it'll give you what age they got married, what day they had, and I thought, oh, I'll just check with my family, and I couldn't believe it with my mother because she just didn't have any kids until my brother appeared. She had to have operation, and bing, she was 35, which is ever so old for her generation to not have a first child until she was 35. Madness. But that was the way that it turned, and almost in a sense you could say, oh, maybe that was fate then, because it had to wait for her to be 35 for that, because it doesn't turn up in transits and it doesn't turn up in progressions, and it turned up in solar arcs. So I thought, ooh, so here we go. Anybody else got any questions?
I think I'm good. Go ahead, Melissa.
Turn your microphone on, Melissa, darling. Unmute yourself. And it's going to write it in the chat. Yeah, unmute yourself. You've got your microphone turned off. Just hit the button.
Got it.
That's it. Got it. That's it. Go. Yeah.
You know the chart you sent through to me. Where do I see that? Because all I see are my natal planets.
That's all you're going to see.
Okay, so
that's what you're using. So let me just get your chart. So, for instance, you've got 2 degrees between your moon and your sun. Sorry, 1 degree between your moon and your sun. You've got 25. So you've got to look at how many degrees you've got between one planet and another in your natal chart. So let's take an example of your Mars and your Jupiter. You've got 9 degrees difference between those 2 planets. So you've got to work out the numbers of it. This probably is one reason I never used this system back in the day, because it involves maths and subtraction and adding things up. Yeah. So if you can think, so if you look at all your, because you've got a cluster, you've got quite a lot of planets very close together, yeah. and your ascendant to your moon, there's 4 degrees there. So could be 4 years old. There's one between your moon, but you can go further. You can go from Jupiter. So your Jupiter is 15 degrees and your sun is 25 degrees. The difference between that is 10. So there could have been something. Jupiter now gets to the sun. Jupiter's about travel, 10 years old. You could have done some traveling. Do you see what I mean? It's the difference between one planet and another and the interpretation of the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You with me? Yeah, so you're looking at your natal chart. All I showed you was how to do it if you've got a particular birthday that you're thinking of, or an event chart, or the date you got married, or whatever, just to see if that shows up. But this method is a method for having a think about in your own chart what was impactful for you at a particular age. Is there a correlation between the degrees between one planet and another on your natal chart without having to use any computer programs? Yeah.
Okay. And so that's the way you would predict something for the others. You look at their natal chart, work out the degrees, and okay.
Yeah. But being very careful that you're not saying awful, scary stuff, that there's like in my case, if somebody had said to me when I was little, your dad's going to die when you're 22, I would have flipped. I would have gone, woof, somebody could have probably said, oh, you're going to find that your 22nd year of life is a little bit more challenging, would be the probably cautious way of putting it. But whether or not you can make that as a prediction, I don't know, because I haven't used this system enough I haven't used it with loads of clients that have come to me when they're 16 and wouldn't do that anyway. I was using it more as a sort of exploratory thing to see whether or not there was anything numbers wise, because it seems such a crazy thing that if you just look at your chart, go, well, there's this amount of degrees between one planet and another, it's going to mean something in the future. Like, what are you on about? Until I looked at it a bit more, and it flipping well did. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
I have a question. I just want to confirm that you're using the symbolism of the planets to help to predict, if you want to use that word, or explain maybe what's happening with when you're advancing whatever planet it might be.
Correct.
So, okay. And then are you using the houses? And then is that the house that the natal planet is in that the other planet has advanced to?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the planet that's been affected by the progressed planet, because they're still called progressions. You're progressing it, you're moving something. So in my sister's case, when my other sister was born, it was her natal third house of siblings. The third house is brothers and sisters. So that I think it was the moon that was the planet that came along and then conjuncted her natal Saturn, age 9. Yeah.
So sorry, Lisa, I'm sorry.
You're good. I'm
The solar arc on the outside that you showed us in green, those would be the ones, in reference to Lisa's question about using the houses. The planets on the outside in the green would be the ones that would correspond with the houses as well, with the symbols of the planet.
Correct. Yes. So where have they moved to? So you've shifted something. Where's it ended up? So what's it got? Because you're going to progress everything forwards. I mean, I didn't go backwards in time. I don't know how I do that. My head would explode. But you're moving things forwards. I don't even know if that method, you could do it backwards, but you're moving the planets forwards and then seeing where that. So in this. In the charts I've used, whenever you progress a planet, you generally in astrology, you move it forwards. So you move one planet forwards to the other one. So you're going up in numbers. So something that's 1 degree, you're going to move it forwards to something that's 9 degrees. And the difference between one and the other will represent the age. Now, where has that moved planet gone to? So in the chart example that I gave you with my mother, with my brother being born, it was the sun that was moving. The sun had progressed by 35 degrees to her natal Mars. Mars is a male planet. She gave birth to a boy. Bing! She did.
And I'm sorry, Miss Mary. Not all planets, though, will do the solar arc. That's what you're saying. So
correct. Yeah. I mean, because in the solar arc system, everything's at 20 years old, everything's going to be moved by 20 degrees. That doesn't happen in a progression. It doesn't happen with a transit. It doesn't happen in life in general either. But you might find that in doing that, something else has shifted. I just use sun examples, but you'll see plenty of examples that she gives in the book of Pluto progressing or Mercury progressing. I just did it to make it easy, but you're using the same maths involved, which is 1 degree for every day. Yeah. So you're going to have to spend a bit of time checking your chart out and seeing, what did or didn't.
2 questions.
Go.
So, the ladies that wrote the book, you said, I didn't catch it. You said Marion March?
Marion D. March as in February, and then Joan McEvers, Mcevers, and the book is called The Only Way to Learn About Tomorrow. They did a series of books called The Only Way to Learn Astrology. Yeah. Book number 2 is useless now because nobody creates charts anymore. It's all computer programs. But this is the one about tomorrow. Yeah. And it's got progressions and directions, solar arcs, lunar returns, and transits.
I'm gonna try some of these out on my children. I've got a 28-year-old, 26, and a 13-year-old. But the 26-year-old or the 28-year-old, he's getting ready this year to take a trip over to Switzerland and Italy. If I monkeyed around with his solar arc, would that be something I could potentially see in there? I mean, I know it's hypothetical. We really don't know until I'll do it, but
if you know the date that he's going to go away,
yes,
you can solar arc it. Yeah, you can solar arc it, but it has to be exact. You're not messing around with something that's, so if something's 6 degrees here and 7 degrees there, that's not solar arc. It's got to be exact.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because you've got to have seen it in the chart, the amount of degrees, whole degrees now, we're not taking minutes or seconds, between one planet and another. Most of the time there's something going on. Yeah.
Okay. I do know his exact date that he's leaving. So
I
would just plug that in for the August 2025. Okay. Cool. That's pretty neat. Like, Mom, how do you know? Mom knows everything.
Be careful with that. I feel I don't know anything.
I always told him I had eyes in the back of my head. I know everything. You can't do anything that I don't know. Been there, done that, brought 1,000 t-shirts home.
Absolutely. Any more questions, anybody? And then I'll stop the recording. We'll carry on having a chat after. So anybody got any more questions? Nope, super. So I'm going to just stop the recording. Thank you very much for coming along this evening. You can find me at www.marenglish.com, marenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Bye-bye now.